The galaxy had always been a vast, interconnected web of species, politics, and peace, but recently, something strange had started to happen. Across the universe, a signal was detected. At first, it seemed harmless, just another random piece of noise in the endless sea of cosmic communications, but something about it caught the attention of the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council was composed of representatives from the most powerful alien civilizations in the galaxy. They had ruled with wisdom and power for centuries, ensuring peace and control. They had seen many wonders and horrors, yet they felt unshaken. However, this new signal was different. It was a frequency, a rhythmic pulse, that originated from a place they didn't recognize, a star system far from their borders. There was no identifiable species behind the signal, no known technology or history, just this strange, continuous hum that seemed to be calling. The council, led by a representative from the Tsalof Empire, immediately called a meeting. They gathered in their enormous chamber, which was built from the finest materials of multiple worlds. The massive, circular table at the center of the room was occupied by alien leaders, each one sitting tall and proud, their eyes gleaming with confidence. But today there was unease in the air. The atmosphere had shifted. A question lingered among them all. What was this signal? "I propose we send a team to investigate," suggested Kalor, a tall, multi-limbed representative from the Durath species. His voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and serious. "We cannot ignore this. It may be an invitation, or a trap." A murmur ran through the room as others debated his suggestion. Some argued that it was just a malfunctioning signal. Others feared it could be a precursor to something far worse. But no one truly knew. They had never encountered anything like this. It didn't fit into their understanding of the galaxy, nor did it belong to any known race. Finally, a voice broke through the confusion. It was Meridian, the representative from the Elari, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. With a deep, resonant voice, Meridian spoke. "The Council has seen many threats before, but this is unlike any we've encountered. I agree, we must investigate it, but with caution. We cannot risk the safety of our people." The Council agreed to send a task force. But before that, they needed more information. The signal grew stronger, more distinct, as if it were responding to the Council's attention. But as the minutes ticked by, no one could explain it. Where did it come from? And more importantly, who sent it? In the midst of the discussion, another voice entered the conversation, this one coming from a human, a quiet observer who had been attending the council meetings. He was just an outsider, a representative of Earth. Most of the aliens had barely paid attention to him, dismissing humans as insignificant compared to their powerful civilizations. Yet now, as the debate grew heated, the human rose from his seat. "I believe I know what this is," he said, his voice calm but steady. All eyes turned toward him. He continued, "This isn't a signal from another species. It's something much older. It's a message from the humans." A silence filled the room. The idea that the humans, a relatively young species by galactic standards, had the audacity to send such a signal was almost laughable. But there was something about the human's voice, his certainty, that made the room uneasy. The Galactic Council was about to face a challenge unlike anything they had ever imagined. They had no idea what they were truly up against. The Galactic Council had never faced anything like this before. For centuries, they had ruled over the galaxy with unmatched power, always certain of their dominance. But the strange signal from humanity had shaken their confidence. Now, they were about to face something they hadn't expected, something terrifying. As the council members continued to discuss the mysterious signal, a sudden alarm blared across their command center. Everyone froze, eyes wide with fear and confusion. The message on the screen was clear. A human warship had just appeared at the edge of their space. It wasn't a scout ship, nor was it any smaller vessel. This was something far bigger, the full-fledged warship. The human ship was unlike any they had ever seen. It was sleek, angular, and almost alien in its design. The hull shimmered with a strange energy field, and it seemed to hum with power. The sensors on the Council's ships immediately went into overdrive, scanning the warship from every angle. But there was a problem. They couldn't make sense of the readings. The human ship didn't match any known technology in the galaxy. Impossible, muttered Zorik, the representative of the Varner species. How could they have built such a thing? We haven't even detected any major advances in their technology. Kalor, the giraffe leader, was already standing, his tentacles gripping the edges of the table tightly. It's too late to doubt. The ship is here. We have to act quickly. The Council quickly activated their communication channels, hoping to send a message of peace to the humans. They sent out a transmission, requesting an immediate meeting to discuss the unexpected arrival. But there was no response. The human warship simply floated in space, observing them from a distance. It didn't move, didn't react. It was as if it was waiting for something. And Regin, the Ilari representative, sat back in his seat, his eyes narrowing. This is not like any species we have encountered. No other civilization would act so confident. The humans are different. They're not asking for our permission. They've simply come. Across the room, the human observer, who had spoken earlier, looked at the large viewing screen, watching the human ship with a mix of understanding and caution. He knew that the ship wasn't just a message, it was a statement. They're not here to negotiate, the human said quietly, almost to himself. They've come to show us what they're capable of. They don't need permission from anyone. The room fell silent. The realization hit hard. The humans weren't like any of the other species the Council had encountered. They weren't trying to conquer the galaxy. They weren't trying to demand anything. But they weren't afraid either. This ship, this warship, was proof that humanity had something far more dangerous: confidence. As the hours passed, the human ship continued to sit in space, unmoving, its presence an ever-growing shadow over the Council. The alien representatives continued to argue, but they all knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Something new had arrived in the galaxy, and it was human. The question that loomed over them now wasn't just who the humans were, but what they would do next. The tension in the Galactic Council's chambers was unbearable. Hours had passed since the human warship appeared, and not a single word had been exchanged. The giant screen in the middle of the room showed nothing but the imposing silhouette of the ship, hovering ominously in the distance. It didn't move, didn't signal, and didn't respond to any attempts at communication. It was as if the human ship was waiting for something, a moment to make its move. Then, without warning, a new transmission came through. The Council's communication system blinked with a new message. The tone was calm, almost too calm, considering the situation. As the message began to play, every representative in the room fell silent. "This is Commander Aaron Mitchell of the United Human Fleet. We have arrived." The voice was clear and steady, but beneath it there was an undeniable weight. It wasn't an introduction, it was a declaration. The Council members exchanged uncertain glances. There was no formal greeting, no sign of diplomatic respect, just words that carried an undeniable weight of authority. "We are not here to negotiate," Commander Mitchell continued. "We do not seek your approval. The human race has no need for permission. We have come because we can. We have come because we will. Consider this the first and only warning. You will respect humanity's space, or you will regret it." The words sent a chill through the chamber. The alien leaders could hardly believe what they were hearing. The humans were speaking to them as equals. No, as something greater. The message was simple, yet it carried a threat none of them had ever experienced before. Zorik, the Varner leader, was the first to break the silence. "This is madness," he muttered, shaking his head. "Who do they think they are? They cannot just come here and demand respect from us." Kalor, the representative of the giraffe species, stood up, his tentacles trembling. "They must have known something we didn't. No one can simply arrive and speak like this. How do they build such power? The Alari representative, Meridian, remained still, his eyes narrowed in thought. The humans have something we do not fully understand. Perhaps they are not as weak as we once believed. The message continued to play, but now it seemed to hang in the air, like a heavy storm waiting to break. Commander Mitchell's words were not just a message. They were a challenge, a call to action. His words carried a weight of confidence and resolve that was hard to ignore. We are not a peaceful race, nor are we a timid one. We have fought wars on our home world. We have faced destruction, yet we rise. Our strength lies not in our technology alone, but in our spirit. We have never backed down, and we never will. This is not a threat. It is a fact. Human determination cannot be broken. As the transmission ended, the room was left in stunned silence. The council members couldn't shake the feeling that they had just heard something that would change the galaxy forever. Commander Mitchell had sent his message loud and clear. Humanity had arrived, not as a visitor, but as a power. The galaxy would have to reckon with them. And the council wasn't sure if they were ready. The Galactic Council chamber was alive with noise. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy were talking over each other, arguing and gesturing wildly. The message from Commander Aaron Mitchell had struck the council like a hammer. The silence that followed had only lasted a moment before chaos broke out. "How dare they speak to us like that?" shouted Jorik, the representative from the Varner species. His large, four-eyed face was flushed with anger. "We are the rulers of the galaxy. How can they treat us as if we are insignificant?" Kalor, the giraffe leader, stood tall, his tentacles curling with tension. He was pacing around the room, trying to process the sudden shock. They must have something we don't know about. No species speaks like this unless they have the power to back it up. And Regin, the Alari representative, was unusually quiet. His species had been around for centuries, and they were known for their wisdom and calm. Yet even Meridian seemed troubled. This isn't just arrogance. They are serious. The human race has shown us that they are willing to do more than just talk. We have underestimated them. The council was in complete disarray. Some leaders called for immediate action, sending their fleets to confront the human warship. Others suggested retreating, trying to avoid direct conflict with the unknown force. But no one was willing to make a decision. Each representative feared making the wrong move, and they were all paralyzed by the uncertainty of what to do next. The Alari, known for their intellectual approach, had always prided themselves on negotiation and diplomacy. But now, their strength felt inadequate. The humans had made their intentions clear. They weren't interested in diplomacy. They had come with force, and they had made sure the council knew it. "Their arrogance is infuriating," said Kalor, slamming his fist on the table. "But we cannot ignore them. We've never faced a species like this. We need to know more." Jorik, still fuming, glared at the screen where the human warship hovered, motionless in space. "I say we attack," he growled. "Show them that we are not weak." Emrajin raised a hand, silencing the room. His voice was calm, but firm. "We need to be cautious. This is not a situation where brute force will win the day. I have heard whispers of humanity's military strength. I fear that if we provoke them, we may face something we cannot overcome." There was a long pause as the council members absorbed Meridian's words. The idea of facing humanity's military might was terrifying. The human warship, which had not shown any aggressive movement yet, had already instilled fear into the hearts of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Finally, the silence was broken by the human observer, who had been quiet up until now. He stood slowly, his expression unreadable. "The humans are not here to take over," he said, his voice steady. "They have no interest in our worlds, our resources, but they will not back down. If you try to force them to leave, you will learn why they are called the greatest warriors of their kind." The council members turned to him, startled. This human, who had been nothing more than an outsider to them until now, seemed to understand more about the situation than they did. His words hung in the air like a warning. The council was now faced with an impossible choice: confront the humans and risk everything, or find a way to coexist with a race that had shown it would not be intimidated. Each leader felt the weight of the decision. The galaxy's future was uncertain, and the unknown human threat loomed larger with every passing moment. As the Galactic Council members continued to debate, the threat of the human warship loomed larger. With every passing moment, the ship remained a silent, looming presence at the edge of their space. It had not moved, not fired a single shot, but its mere existence was a challenge. The Council was now trapped in a web of uncertainty. The council hall was filled with heated voices, each leader proposing different strategies. Some wanted to retreat, to avoid direct confrontation with a species they barely understood. Others, like Shorik, insisted that they could defeat the humans. "We have fleets. We have firepower. We are the rulers of the galaxy. We can crush them," Jorik argued, his 4 eyes narrowing in determination. But Mirajin, the Alari representative, spoke with caution. "We cannot approach this situation as if it's any other battle. The humans are not like the species we fought before. I've seen their history. They do not fight like us. They fight with their hearts and minds. We may be underestimating them." Jorg shook his head. "We can't stand here and do nothing while they mock us. They are playing a dangerous game." As the arguments continued, the human observer from Earth, still sitting silently in the back of the room, rose again. His calm demeanor seemed to stand in stark contrast to the chaotic atmosphere around him. "The humans have no interest in playing games," he said softly. "They don't need to make threats. Their reputation speaks for itself. If you truly want to understand them, look at how they fight. They don't rely on superior numbers. They rely on strategy, creativity, and sheer willpower. You cannot simply overpower them with brute force." The council paused at his words. There was an undeniable weight to them. The humans weren't like any species the council had encountered. They had no galactic empire, no massive fleets, just determination and an unwillingness to back down. The fact that they had built a warship capable of challenging the greatest forces in the galaxy was enough to make every leader uneasy. Kalor, the Girath representative, finally spoke. "So, what do you suggest, human? How do we deal with a species that refuses to be intimidated?" The human observer met his gaze without hesitation. "You don't try to intimidate them. You don't fight them the way you fight everyone else. You can't use your old tactics. The humans will find a way to turn them against you." The room went silent as the full weight of the human's words sank in. The council had been used to victory through power and numbers, but humanity had something different, something the council wasn't prepared for: resilience. It was then that the human observer gave a slight smile. The best way to understand the humans is to see their history, to see the battles they fought, not just with weapons, but with their very souls. Mimrajin, the Alari leader, slowly nodded. Perhaps we need to rethink our strategy. A direct assault may not be the answer. But what then? How do we approach this without underestimating them?" The human observer's eyes glinted with a strange certainty. "You don't defeat the humans. You negotiate with them." The council members exchanged uneasy looks. The idea of negotiating with the humans seemed almost absurd given the power they had shown. Yet the more they considered it, the more they realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the only path forward. But even if they did manage to negotiate, would the humans accept it? Would they truly back down? Or would they simply continue their conquest, taking their place as the new force in the galaxy? One thing was certain: the Council's future was no longer as secure as it once had been. They had to adapt, or risk being overshadowed by the relentless rise of humanity. The tension in the Galactic Council chamber had reached a boiling point. Hours had passed since the human message had been delivered, and yet the Council still had not come to an agreement. They had never faced a species like humanity before, bold, confident, and unafraid to confront the galaxy's most powerful leaders. The idea that such a young species could cause this much disruption was terrifying. Finally, after much debate, the council decided on a course of action. They couldn't let the humans just wander into their space and dictate terms. There were too many unknowns. If the humans had the power to build a warship like the one that now loomed at the edge of their borders, they might not be content with simply being left alone. Kalor, the giraffe representative, slammed his tentacles down on the table. We cannot just sit here and wait. We have to show them that we are not afraid. We will send a fleet to surround them. If they want a fight, they will have one. Memrajin, the Elari representative, sighed. He had hoped the council would approach this matter with more caution. And if their ship is even stronger than we imagine, we could risk everything by attacking them. This isn't a species we know anything about. Jorik, the Varner leader, gritted his teeth. We've dealt with powerful foes before. We've fought and won countless battles. There's no reason to believe humans are different. But Marajan's voice cut through the tension. There's a difference between fighting with sheer force and fighting with strategy. We've underestimated the humans before, and I fear we are making the same mistake now. Despite Marajan's warnings, the council voted to prepare a fleet. The message was clear. Humanity was to be tested. The fleet would surround the human warship, and they would force it to communicate. The council was ready to show their strength and remind humanity of its place in the galaxy. Hours later, the massive fleet of ships assembled. It was a terrifying display of power. Ships from multiple species, all hovering just outside the human warship's reach. They positioned themselves carefully, hoping to create an imposing circle around the human ship. The message was simple: back down or face the consequences. The human warship, however, remained unmoving. Not a single shot was fired, not a single message was sent. The silence was deafening. It was almost as if the humans were daring the fleet to make the first move. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the human warship sent a signal. But this time, it wasn't a message of diplomacy or threats. It was something different. The signal was brief, and it contained only a single phrase. Do you really want to fight? The council members stared at the screen, their hearts racing. There was no demand, no forceful statement, just a simple question. It was a reminder that humanity had no interest in fighting unless provoked, but they also had no intention of backing down. The question hung in the air, unanswered. Emrajin felt a chill run down his spine. The human response was a reminder of just how different they were from the rest of the galaxy's civilizations. They were not a species that followed the rules. They made their own. Kaler's voice broke the silence. Perhaps we've been wrong in how we viewed them. We need to rethink our approach. A battle could destroy us all. The fleet hovered, waiting for the next move. The fate of the galaxy rested on this decision. Would the Galactic Council push forward, or would they seek to understand the humans before they made a mistake they couldn't undo? The Council was stuck in a difficult position. The human warship floated just outside the perimeter of their fleet, silent and unmoving. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath as the tension built. No one knew what would happen next. Would the humans launch an attack, or would they back down? The Galactic Council had sent its largest fleet to face them, but the human ship had not so much as flinched. In the command center of the Council's fleet, the officers watched the human warship closely. Its hull was sleek, almost too perfect, and the technology surrounding it was beyond anything they had seen before. The humans hadn't fired a single shot. They hadn't even sent a threatening message. But their silence spoke volumes. It was a warning that they were prepared for anything. Zorik, the Varner leader, was the first to speak. Why aren't they attacking? He demanded, his voice harsh. This is absurd. They should have acted by now. Memrajin, the Elari representative, leaned back in his seat, his fingers steepling in thought. The humans are not like us. They don't fight for the sake of fighting. They fight when they are pushed too far, when their survival is at risk. I fear we've made a grave mistake by forcing them into a corner. Kalor, the giraffe representative, was still pacing, unable to contain his frustration. We cannot back down. If we show weakness now, the rest of the galaxy will lose all respect for us. We must prove our strength. The debate raged on, but no one was willing to make the first move. The human warship remained in place, as if it were waiting for something too. The fleet's weapon systems were fully charged and ready, but there was no target to aim at. And then, as if in answer to their uncertainty, a new transmission came through. The voice that came across the speaker was calm, almost eerily so. It was Commander Aaron Mitchell, the leader of the human fleet. His voice was firm and direct, but there was an air of finality to it. "We're not here to destroy you," Commander Mitchell said. "We're here to show you that we will not be controlled. We don't need your permission to exist in this galaxy, and we don't seek your approval. The human race will stand on its own. If you wish to negotiate, we will listen. But if you want to fight, you will find that the humans are not so easily defeated." His words echoed in the chamber, and for the first time, the leaders of the council were uncertain. There was no boastfulness, no immediate threat in his voice, but there was something else, something that made them question their own strength. Jorik slammed his fist onto the table, his eyes filled with frustration. "They insult us with every word. How dare they speak to us this way?" But Merajan's voice was calm as ever. "We must choose our next move carefully. The humans are not easily provoked, but if we push them too far, they will not hesitate to retaliate. We are in uncharted territory." For a moment, the room fell silent. The council had never faced such an uncertain future. They had always been able to rely on their strength and power, but now they were faced with a new kind of force, one that would not yield, no matter how great the threat. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. "What happens now?" Collar asked, his voice quieter than before. Emrajin looked at the screen, where the human warship still sat, calm and unwavering. "We wait," he said softly. "We wait for them to decide what comes next." And so, the standoff continued. The fleet waited, and the humans waited. Neither side was willing to make the first move. The Council's once unquestioned dominance was now challenged by a species they had never fully understood, and for the first time in their history, the galaxy's fate was uncertain. The Galactic Council was in a state of disbelief. Never before had they been so uncertain about their future. For centuries, they had been the dominant force in the galaxy, controlling vast territories and dictating the flow of power. Yet now, with the appearance of a single human warship, everything had changed. The council members were facing a new reality, a reality they weren't sure they were prepared for. The human warship had not moved since it first arrived, sitting motionless in space, as if it were waiting for something. The tension in the command center of the fleet was palpable. Officers nervously scanned their screens, looking for any sign of action, any hint of aggression from the human ship. But there was nothing. The silence was deafening. Emrajin, the Alari representative, was the first to speak. "This is unlike anything we've ever seen," he said, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and concern. "The humans are not reacting as we expected. They are not afraid of us." Jorik, the Varner leader, clenched his fists in frustration. "We've shown them our power. Why haven't they responded? Are they trying to provoke us into making a mistake?" Kalor, the giraffe representative, was pacing back and forth. "Perhaps they're waiting for us to make the first move. But we cannot wait forever. This could go on for days, even weeks. We must act." But Merajan shook his head. "We don't understand them. This isn't a battle of force. It's a battle of will. The humans have something different from us, something we don't have." Jorik looked at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Their resilience," Emrajin said softly. "They fight not for power, but for survival. And when they fight, they do not do so with the intention to defeat their enemy quickly. They fight with patience. They wait for the right moment. And when it comes, They strike with everything they have. The room fell silent as the council members processed Meridian's words. For the first time, they began to realize that the tension in the Galactic Council chamber was almost unbearable. The human warship had remained in place, silent and unmoving, while the council had spent countless hours debating what to do next. There were no easy answers. Some believed that the only way to deal with humanity was through force, while others feared the consequences of underestimating them. But after all the debates, one thing was certain: humanity was not a threat to be taken lightly. Meridian, the Alari representative, sat back in his seat, his eyes reflecting deep thought. He had been the calmest among the leaders, trying to reason through the chaos. For hours, he had been pondering what the human observer had said. The humans didn't want to conquer the galaxy. They didn't want to destroy anyone. They simply wanted respect. And perhaps, Meridian realized, that was something the council could give them. He stood up slowly, his voice quiet but filled with purpose. I have been thinking. We have spent too long discussing power, military might, and domination. We've approached this as if humanity is just another species to control. But perhaps we should approach them differently. Jorik, the Varner leader, looked up sharply. What are you suggesting, Meridian? Do you mean to bow down to them? No, Meridian replied, shaking his head. But perhaps it's time to recognize humanity's value in a different way. We've been too focused on our own strength, and not enough on the strength of others. The human species has something that none of us can ignore: resilience, creativity, and determination. If we continue to clash with them, we will only create a deeper divide. Kalor, the Jurath representative, crossed his arms, frowning. And what do you propose we do? Let them take over the galaxy. Meridian paused, letting his words settle in the room. No, but we should consider an alliance, an arrangement where we acknowledge their place in the galaxy, not as a threat, but as an equal. They may be new to this galaxy, but their potential is far greater than we have given them credit for. The room fell silent. The idea of an alliance with humanity was shocking, even to Meridian. But as he considered it further, it seemed to be the only way to move forward. Humanity had shown that they would not be subjugated. They had no desire for power or conquest. They simply wanted respect. In a way, they were like the council had once been. New, struggling to find their place, but with a strength that demanded recognition. Sorik was the first to speak after the silence. And what makes you think they will even consider this offer? They've made it clear that they don't need our approval. Meridian nodded. They don't need our approval, but they may be willing to work with us for the betterment of all. We must show them that we're not here to dominate them. We are here to coexist. The human observer, who had been quietly listening to the discussion, finally stood. You're right, he said, his voice calm and measured. The humans don't want to conquer, but they do want to be treated with respect. If you offer them an alliance based on mutual understanding, they will listen. But if you continue to challenge them, you will only push them further away. The council members exchanged glances, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. They had never considered the possibility of an alliance with humanity. The idea was radical, unthinkable even. But now, it seemed like the only path forward. We'll have to negotiate with them, Meridian said, his voice firm. But if we do, we must do so with sincerity. We must show the humans that we are not their enemies, but their partners. Jorik sighed heavily, but after a moment he nodded. Perhaps this is the only way forward. And so, the council began to prepare for a new kind of conversation, one based on respect, cooperation, and the hope of building a future where humans and aliens could stand together, not as enemies, but as equals. It was a gamble, one that could change the galaxy forever. But it was a gamble they had no choice but to take. The Galactic Council had made a decision, and it was a decision that would change the galaxy forever. After hours of heated debate and fear, the representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy had come to a surprising conclusion. The humans, a young species that had shown nothing but strength and resilience, were not to be feared as an enemy. Instead, they would be recognized as equals. The Council had decided to offer an alliance. It wasn't an easy choice. Many of the Council members still believed that humanity's rise could not be trusted. They had shown no interest in conquest, but that didn't mean they wouldn't eventually seek to control the galaxy. But Merajan's words had convinced them. He had reminded them of how the Council itself had once been new, struggling to find its place. He had pointed out that humanity had something special, something that the galaxy needed. As the Council prepared for the next steps, a special communication was sent to the human warship. The message was simple: "We wish to negotiate. Let us find a way to work together." The human warship, as expected, remained silent for a few moments. But then, a new message came through. It was from Commander Aaron Mitchell, the leader of the human fleet. His voice was calm and steady as he spoke. "We have been waiting for this moment. Humanity is ready to talk. But understand this: we will not back down. We will not be controlled. But we are open to working with you for the future of the galaxy." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't going to back down, but they were open to cooperation. They had made their stance known. But now, they were ready to see if the Council could meet them halfway. The Council leaders gathered again, this time with a sense of purpose. The fear that had once gripped them had begun to fade. They had seen the humans for what they truly were, not a threat to be conquered, but a powerful ally to be respected. And now they had to prove that they could approach this new relationship with the same respect. Merajan spoke first. "This is our chance to create something new, something that benefits all species. We must go into this with open minds and hearts." Kalor, the giraffe leader, looked at Merajan. "You're right. We've spent too long focusing on our own power. Maybe it's time to focus on what we can build together." Zorik, the Varner leader, still looked uncertain but nodded in agreement. "Let's see what the humans have to offer. But remember, they are not like us. They will expect honesty and sincerity." The meeting was set. The Galactic Council would meet with Commander Mitchell and his representatives to begin negotiations. It wasn't a perfect solution. There were still doubts, still questions about humanity's true intentions. But for the first time, the Council had seen a future where humans were not enemies, but potential partners. And so, the two forces, the Galactic Council and humanity, began to take their first steps toward a new relationship. The negotiations would be difficult, no doubt. Trust would need to be earned, and both sides would need to learn to work together. But the future held promise. A new chapter was beginning for the galaxy, and humanity had proven that they could shape that future, not with fear or force, but with courage and respect. The human warship, once a symbol of uncertainty and fear, now stood as a symbol of hope, a sign that even the greatest challenges could be met with cooperation. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was ready to be a part of it. The question now was not whether the humans would succeed, but whether the galaxy was ready to embrace them. Only time would tell.